The gas station lights buzzed under the dying sun, flickering against the cracked asphalt like broken promises. A boy stood by the door, small, quiet, holding a crumpled dollar in his hand. Inside, the clerk leaned against the counter, his eyes cold and unwelcoming. The air was heavy with something more than heat. It was tension, raw and silent. The boy whispered, almost afraid of his own voice, "Can I have some water, sir?" The man behind the counter didn't move. He just stared, then slowly shook his head. "Not for you, kid. Get out." Outside, the sound of engines rolled in from the distance, deep, thunderous, like a storm announcing itself on the horizon. Stay till the end. Because this story proves brotherhood is louder than fear. His name was Marcus, 9 years old, skin the color of midnight, and eyes that carried both hope and hunger. He had been walking for miles along the old highway, dust clinging to his shoes and silence to his thoughts. The heat had turned the air into a mirage, and the glow of that gas station had looked like salvation. But inside, salvation turned its back on him. The people in line didn't say a word. Some looked away, others smirked. Marcus left without a sound, clutching his empty bottle as if it were something sacred. He sat by the road, legs trembling, watching the trucks roar past, carrying strangers who never saw him. He didn't know that not far behind, another sound was coming. The low, rumbling thunder of motorcycles, riding in formation like a storm made of metal and loyalty. And soon, the quiet road would remember his name. The sun slipped beneath the trees, leaving a trail of gold that melted into darkness. The bikers had stopped at a diner a few miles back, but one of them, an older man with gray in his beard and fire in his eyes, had noticed something. A boy, walking alone down the shoulder of the highway, his shirt torn, his steps unsteady. The man, known by his brothers as Bear, slowed his Harley beside the boy and killed the engine. "You okay, kid?" he asked. Marcus hesitated, then pointed toward the glowing sign in the distance. "They wouldn't let me buy water," he murmured. Bear's jaw tightened. The road had taught him many things, but there were two lines you never crossed: disrespect for a child and judgment for a man's color. He nodded once, turned his bike around, and within moments, the night was alive with the roar of a dozen engines. The desert wind carried the promise of reckoning. They rode in silence, a convoy of chrome and fury cutting through the dark. Each headlight carved a tunnel of light across the highway, and behind every visor was the same fire. They weren't just men on machines. They were a brotherhood built on loyalty, forged from the ashes of every injustice they'd ever seen. When they reached the station, the clerk looked up, startled. The ground trembled beneath the weight of their arrival. Bear dismounted, his boots echoing against the concrete. He didn't need to raise his voice. The silence did it for him. You refuse to serve a child." His tone was calm, but his eyes spoke a language older than fear. The clerk swallowed, trying to speak, but the words never came. If you believe loyalty still has meaning, subscribe to Hell's Road, because stories like this are far from over. The bikers didn't shout, didn't threaten. They simply acted. One filled a bottle from the cooler. Another walked it outside and handed it to Marcus. The boy took it with both hands, eyes wide, unsure if this was real. Bear turned back to the clerk, his voice low. "Respect, it costs nothing, but some men still can't afford it." He left a 20 on the counter, placed his gloves back on, and nodded to his brothers. They carried their colors like armor, symbols of loyalty stitched in leather. You can carry that same spirit. Our official Hell's Road gear is linked below for those who live by the code. Engines ignited as the bikers formed a line outside the station, their presence alone rewriting the silence. Locals gathered, whispering, staring. Marcus stood in the middle, holding his water bottle, watching men who looked like legends made real. Bear knelt beside him, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Don't ever let anyone tell you what you're worth, son. The road don't care about color, it only cares about courage." The boy nodded, tears mixing with dust on his cheeks. The bikers revved their engines, the sound rising like thunder across the fields, shaking the night awake. The gas station lights flickered again, but this time, under the roar of brotherhood, the fear was gone. As they rode off into the darkness, Marcus watched until the last taillight disappeared into the horizon. He didn't know their names, but he knew what they stood for: dignity, respect, and justice without words. The next morning, the gas station clerk found something taped to the door: a patch. It read, "Brotherhood lives here." Some roads lead to redemption, others to memory. If you want to keep the fire alive, the official Hell's Road store is linked below, where brotherhood lives beyond the story. The world often forgets the small acts that rewrite fate. But on that forgotten stretch of asphalt, one moment changed everything. A boy who had been turned away learned that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the sound of engines in the dark, coming for you when the world looks the other way. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears leather and rides beneath the stars. And sometimes all it takes to change a life is a stranger who decides that silence is no longer an option. This was one of many forgotten legends of the road. Subscribe to Hell's Road and ride with us into the next story, because out there, every mile carries a memory, and every brother carries the truth.